Welcome to a new edition of the Famous Interviews with Joe Domino. On this episode, we talk with digital nomad, podcast creator, and mentor, Rosemarie Francis. She is the producer and host of two podcasts, Solo Moms Talk and Tools of the Podcast Trade. She began her broadcasting journey in 2014 when she started an online radio station to encourage single moms. Jen was recently nominated as a featured podcaster on www.ihaveapodcast.com. She loves to travel, especially on Amtrak, reads and journals daily, and blogs for self-expression. It's quite a story. Enjoy.
Well, it's great to meet you. Where are you located?
I'm in Austin.
Okay, excellent. Well, I'm in Kansas City, Missouri. It's great to meet you. Thank you for taking a minute out.
Yeah, thank you for having me. And yeah.
You bet. So before we get into your story, I'd like to know, 4 years ago, we were kind of looking at this COVID pandemic, trying to figure out how long it was going to last and all of that stuff. How did you make it through that time period, and how did it change the way that you live your life now?
Oh, so I was working full-time at the time in New York City, and I took early retirement in July of 2020 and traveled to Canada. And I stayed there for 4 months and came back home. So that's really how I spent 2020.
So what? Oh, go ahead.
Sorry.
No, you're good.
Yeah, I spent the time traveling. I traveled by Amtrak. I didn't fly. And so I was able to travel even with COVID because I didn't want to be restricted like that.
So let's get to the heart and soul of what you do prior to retirement, your career, and what you do now. I'm going to do that by putting you in front of a bunch of third graders at career day. And one of the kids is curious and says, "Hey, what do you do for a living?" How do you answer that child?
Well, in the past, what I did was I worked as an admin assistant to a bunch of economists and Wall Street analysts. I worked for a Wall Street firm. And we were the only firm on Wall Street, actually. But what I did for them, I did a lot of support work to help them get their day going so they could be good analysts. Right now, I'm a podcaster. I'm semi-retired, and all I do is travel. I do what you call slow travel. So I travel, and I'll spend 6 months or a few months, a few weeks somewhere. But all the time I'm doing podcasting. So I guess I'm what you call a digital nomad.
Absolutely. So what did you want to be in the third grade? What was your dream to grow up and become?
I wanted to work in finance. I didn't exactly know what the name of my career would be, but I wanted to work with money and with math because I loved math.
So take me back to where you were born and raised and how you got this desire to get into money and numbers and eventually becoming a digital nomad.
So I was born in Jamaica. I was raised by my grandfather since I was 9 months old. My mother was part of the Windrush generation and went to England. So we were poor, but I was an avid learner. I loved to read. My granddad put me in school when I was 3 years old, and I was hungry to learn. And I don't know, maybe it was the being poor, but I always wanted to be in finance, count numbers, count money, that kind of thing. I went to England when I was a teenager and met my mom, and I stayed in England for about 5 years, 6 years, got married, went to Canada, stayed in Canada for about 11 years, and then moved to the U.S. So I've been traveling practically all my life.
So who's been kind of an inspiration or a hero for you in your life?
Hero was my grandfather. My grandfather only had a third grade education, but he taught me to read, and he taught me the value of hard work and dedication. And he was very supportive of me. He died when I was 12, but he's the only parent that I do remember, respect, and admire.
So if you could meet anybody alive on the planet right now that you admire or respect or feel like you would just love to spend some time with, who would that be?
Oh, they're still alive?
Well, we could open it up to the ghosts.
Okay. This might seem weird, but I think maybe Jesus. I would have liked to be on earth when Jesus was on earth, if you understand that. I would have liked to see him as man.
Oh, I totally get that. No, that would be fascinating.
Yeah.
So what is your motivation every day to wake up, to do these podcasts, to travel, to see the world? What is that motivation for you?
So there are two. One is that I don't want to die with my dream inside me. And so I get up every day hoping to serve someone. And I don't really care if it's just one person I'm serving. I would be happy if that's what I achieve every single day. Just to reach, to motivate, to inspire someone to be a better them, right? I travel because I believe that this world belongs to God and that we weren't made to just sit one place and suffer. That our desire to explore the earth is an ingrown desire. We were born with this desire, but we've allowed the burden of life and work and all the other things to tie us down to, things and stress us out over life. I just don't believe that we were born to be tied to jobs and, all this stuff that we collect over time.
So of everything that you've done up to this point in your life and evolved into, what are you ultimately the proudest of?
Raising my two youngest sons by myself, practically. My ex-husband walked out on us when they were 2 and 4, and they are now 31 and 29. And I'm very proud of them. I'm very proud that they've turned into well-adjusted young men. And I often say I really had nothing to do with it, but they often remind me that, Mom, you were the only one there. So I'm proud that I didn't run away, I didn't walk away, and I didn't give up.
So what's the best advice you've ever gotten in your life?
I think it's a strange one, but I've always held it in my brain that I wasn't put on this earth by accident, and that God has something in store for me to do. And I still believe that. I know that I haven't figured out what that is, but I do believe that in that advice.
But do you feel like you're getting closer with doing all of the podcasting and with traveling? Do you feel like each day, each year, incrementally, you're getting closer to that real meaning?
I do. And I guess the difficulty for me is that I want to see results. And because I'm one of those people who are thinking, well, I need to hear that I'm doing something that positively impacts someone's life. And if I'm not hearing that, then I feel like I'm not meeting my goals. But every now and again, I'll get that feedback and I say, okay, well, it's worth getting up and doing this.
So let's say you have a dream tonight. You run into an 18-year-old version of you, and you can give that young version of you a piece of advice based on this life you've lived, the wisdom you've gained along the way. What advice would you give that young version of you?
Oh boy. That is a tough one, because I often say that if I could do it all over again, I wouldn't change much. And I would say be prepared. I would say to my 18-year-old self, be prepared, prepare your mind, prepare your heart, and remember that God loves you just as you are. And that's all I could say.
So of all of these places that you've traveled to around the globe, what was one of the most unexpectedly magical places, beautiful places that you were at?
Mexico. I spent 6 months in Mexico in Playa del Carmen, and I was amazed at the energy, from the moment I walked out of Cancun airport, you could feel the energy. And it was the energy of the people saying, welcome to my country. I hope you enjoy it. And I never miss seeing the energy of the Mexican people, how they all come together. One of the most impressive things that I noticed was that every morning around 10 o'clock, no matter which corner of the city I was in, there was a family having breakfast, and they would have breakfast together. And I am very impressed by that. Going to the beach, grandma, mom and dad, the kids, the grandkids, everybody goes to the beach together. So I find that Mexico for me was magical, and it gave me a sense of peace and calm being there.
So at the end of the day, as the voice behind the podcasts and the one that's kind of leading your life, everyone has a perception of you, family, friends, listeners, everyone around you, but you run the show. What's your perception of you? Who do you think you are?
I think I'm a loving and kind person who has sometimes too much empathy, if there's such a thing. But I want to be that person who give and who is perceived as a giving person and one who would give until they have no more to give.
So of all of the travels that you make, all of the people you see, all the cultures you get involved with, are you hopeful for humanity as we've come out of this pandemic and things are just in such a state of change for humanity?
I'm hopeful. I am burdened. But I'm not afraid, because I think that there might be an evil power at work, but there is a stronger good power at work. And I believe deep down that as humans, we all desire to live a better life, and that we'll continue to seek for that better life regardless of the struggles we face.
So well said. If anyone wants to tune into your podcast, anyone wants to learn more about you, reach out, anything revolving around your world, where's the best place to go?
The best place would probably be jrosemarie.com, and that's JROSEMARIE.com. You'll find most of my stuff there.
Wow, this has been amazing. What a great story. What a great uplifting outlook on life. Thank you so much for taking a minute out today, and best of luck with everything.
Thank you very much for having me. I appreciate you.
Thanks for tuning in to another famous interview with Joe Dimino, where we cover the world of art, literature, business, spirituality, music, and more from around the globe. Our esteemed theme music was composed and produced by the great E.E. Pointer of Kansas City's River Cow Orchestra. If you want to hear more interviews, visit the Famous Interviews with Joe Dimino channel on YouTube. You can also find us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Thanks again for listening, and until next time.